Hippocrates, the father of medicine, 400 years BC, no mention of diabetes in his writings. So diabetes is a fairly modern disease. Diabetes is a lifestyle disease. Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there's an equal and an opposite reaction. Why isn't the pancreas working? That's what we should be asking.
Hello and welcome back. I'm Barbara O'Neill. Today we're going to talk about a disease that affects millions of people around the world, diabetes, which is often referred to as a lifestyle disease. This means that the way we live, our diet, exercise habits and stress levels plays a significant role in whether or not we develop this condition. Diabetes isn't just about blood sugar levels. It's a reflection of how our daily choices impact our overall health. The good news is that with the right lifestyle changes, diabetes can often be managed or even prevented. In this lecture, I'll break down what you need to know about diabetes, how your lifestyle affects it, and practical steps you can take to improve your health. So stay tuned as we explore how making small but meaningful changes can lead to big improvements in your life.
Diabetes is a lifestyle disease. Even the newspapers, even medicine will acknowledge it is a lifestyle disease. So that means it's caused by lifestyle. Many people don't realise actually what is causing it. And if you don't know what causes it, you won't know the remedy. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to show you what causes it, and then I'm going to show you how you can turn this around. Now, never in the history of mankind have human beings eaten so many carbohydrates. So we're going to do a carbohydrate assessment here. Carbohydrates are an important part of the food group, but the problem is today carbohydrates are being overused and refined. So let's do an assessment of what many people have for breakfast. We know what many people have for breakfast because you just go into the supermarket aisle and there's a whole aisle of it. What is it? It is cereal. I've got a book in my library at home called Serial Killer. And on the front page there's a big picture of Fruit Loops. And you'll understand by the end of this lecture why the book's called Serial Killer. A lot of people have bread, toast, yeah, and there's a whole aisle devoted to bread. And many people find that by mid-morning they're hungry. So then they go to the cakes or the biscuits or the donuts, so we'll just say cakes, etc. And Aussies love their pies. Do New Zealanders love their pies? Yes. And the Europeans have introduced us to pizza and pasta. I didn't know what pasta was till I was 18, but I don't think there's a home today without pasta. And if children are allowed to, they'll live on it. Is that right? And Asians have introduced us to rice. My husband's an Irishman. What must every main meal contain? Potatoes. And last, and certainly least in nutritive value, is the pure crystallized acid that's been extracted from the sugarcane plant. Would you agree with me that New Zealanders are high carbohydrate consumers? Now, everything that we eat goes into our gastrointestinal tract, and it is not part of you or me until it gets broken down to tiny substances absorbed into the blood, then it becomes part of you or me. And the tiny substance that all these foods break down to is glucose. Glucose is the main fuel used by every cell in the body. So all of this breaks down in the gut, and on Friday night I'll show you that fascinating process that does that. And then the glucose gets absorbed into the blood, and then it goes on the M1 main highway straight to the project manager, which is your liver. And then your liver determines where the glucose goes. The first place it will be sent is to the CBD, the inside workings of the cell. So let's have a look at what happens when the glucose comes into the cell. The glucose comes into the cell under the action of a hormone called insulin. So we're going to draw our pancreas here. Here's pancreas. Pancreas lives under your left rib. Liver lives under your right rib. And the pancreas releases two hormones in the blood. One is insulin, and insulin is designed to get the glucose out of the blood and into the cell. The other hormone that is released by the pancreas is glucagon. And that is the hormone that releases fat stores to get the blood sugar level up. So you can see these two hormones are balancing blood glucose levels. You'll see as we go through this.
When the pancreas releases insulin, it helps glucose enter the cells, where it's either used for energy or stored as glycogen for later. This keeps blood sugar levels in check. If insulin isn't produced properly, or if cells become resistant to it, glucose stays in the bloodstream, which can lead to diabetes. Glucagon works in the opposite way. When blood sugar levels drop, glucagon signals the liver to convert stored glycogen back into glucose and release it into the blood. This raises blood sugar levels to provide a steady energy supply. Managing diabetes means understanding how your lifestyle affects these processes. Making changes like cutting back on refined carbs, eating more fibre, and getting regular exercise can help keep your blood sugar levels stable. It's all about finding a balance that works for you and supporting your body's natural processes.
Hippocrates has no mention of diabetes in his writings because sugar was not refined in Hippocrates' day. It's when sugar became refined and used more predominantly that the diabetes appeared. Because you see, when the blood sugar goes up high, which it does under the action of sugar, the brain says, overload, quick, release the insulin. And the insulin, as I showed you, gets the glucose out of the blood and into storage. But because there was so much glucose, too much insulin's released. Where's the blood glucose going now? Too low. Brain says, oh no, we're too low. Stop the insulin, release the glucagon. Glucagon's the hormone that can release fat cells to get that glucose up. But what does the person usually do down there? Give me a cup of coffee with 3 tablespoons of sugar. I need a lift. How often do you hear that about 9:30 in the morning in the workplace? I need a lift, I need a lift. So they have the Mars bar, they have the lollies, they have the biscuits, the whatever. Will that give a lift? Oh, yes. Whew. Oh no, we're too high. Stop the glucagon, release the insulin. Oh no, can you see what's happening? Now the first thing that happens is that cell develops insulin resistance. Basically the cell says, I'm sick of the sight of you. Have you heard of insulin resistance? So the insulin's released to get the glucose into the blood, but now the cell's developed insulin resistance. So the brain says, oh no, the blood sugar levels are high. Quick, pancreas, more insulin, more insulin. And now the glucose starts spilling out in the urine. Do you know what diabetes mellitus means? Sweet urine. And the pancreas has just had it. It's just absolutely done. It says, I've had enough. I'm exhausted. And it's not releasing it anymore. There's your diabetes. And the person starts to want to drink huge amounts of water. The huge amounts of water come in to try and balance this. Whew. But something else has come along. You see, in Australia, there are 400 diabetics diagnosed every week in Australia. Would you call that an epidemic? I'd call it a pandemic. There's hardly a house without a diabetic. But something else has come along that solves that has caused the problem, and knowing it can solve the problem. In the 1950s, Dr. Norman Bulag and his team of scientists put wheat through intensive crossbreeding. They wanted to produce a plant with a higher yield of grain to save the starvation crisis in India, Mexico, Africa. And so they through the crossbreeding, they produced a plant with a higher yield. But before the grain ripened, the stalk broke. So they went back to the drawing board and they created a plant that only grows about 2 foot high. It has a very thick stem and it can hold the heavy yield of grain. When I was a little girl and you went out west, the wheat was this high. You go out west today, what do you see? It's way down here. I had a guest to our program. He said, my brother is in his 70s now. He's a wheat farmer. He said he loves this new wheat. He gets 10 times more grain per acre. What does that mean? 10 times more money per acre. Now, no one objects to the helping the starvation crisis, but what was never addressed was the effect of that grain on the human body. The hybridization of that grain produced a starch, and it's that starch that is causing all the problems. And the starch is amylopectin A. Amylopectin A is the type of starch that was produced in the hybridization. You see, you think about this. Dr. Norman Bulag got a Nobel Prize in 1969 for his hybridized wheat. 1970s, that wheat went worldwide. By the 1990s, let's have a look at this. Every cereal, bread, cake, pie, pizza, pasta is the hybridized wheat.
The shift to hybridized wheat has had a big impact on our health. This new type of wheat, with its high amylopectin A content, turns into glucose quickly in the body, which can raise blood sugar levels rapidly. This spike in blood sugar can worsen insulin resistance and increase the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Because hybridized wheat is more productive and cheaper, it's found in many processed foods. People are consuming more products that cause blood sugar spikes, making it harder for the body to manage glucose levels. The widespread use of these processed foods, which often replace healthier options, contributes to higher diabetes rates. The high availability of these foods has changed eating habits, leading many to choose products made from hybridized wheat over whole grains and other nutritious choices. This makes it harder for people to keep their blood sugar in check and stay healthy. Raising awareness about these dietary changes and considering adjustments in our eating habits might help counteract some of these health issues.
So number one, how can we conquer diabetes? There are certain things that have to stop. So stop the hybridized wheat. Can you get wheat that has not been hybridized? You can. It's called ancient grains. You might have seen bread made out of ancient grains. And they are spelt. Spelt are wild hybrids of the original wheat, and also kamut and inkhorn. So if you can find breads out of those grains, they are similar to the original wheat. They don't have that amylopectin A in them. And it's the amylopectin A that was produced in the hybridization of the wheat. So stop the hybridized wheat, stop dairy, and stop the refined sugar. The refined sugar doesn't get let off the hook here. How many Aussies, how many New Zealanders have those three for breakfast? When I was a little girl, that's what we have for breakfast every day. Cereal, milk, sugar on top. I now know why I used to get bronchitis every winter. So those things must stop. There's something else that's contributing to the diabetes, and that is caffeine. Most people don't realize that caffeine can also get an insulin response. We had a young man do our program. His name was Dan, and he had type 1 diabetes, and he got it at the age of 15 from a very strong course of antibiotics. Drugs can sometimes kill off the beta cells in the pancreas. When he came to us, he was 20. He was carrying a little bit of extra weight. You see, insulin has a one-track mind. I must store, I must store, I must store. And that's why most diabetics are carrying excess weight. It's almost impossible to lose weight when you've got high levels of insulin, because it's just trying to store, store, store. He said to me, my doctor told me my pancreas is dead. I said, is it gangrene? What's dead? Do you know if there's blood and there's lymph going through the pancreas, it's alive, because the life of the flesh is in the blood. Dan heard the lectures. We don't serve any of these foods at our health retreat. He told me, he was with us for 4 weeks. He told me a week later, he said, I was getting blood sugar level low in the middle of the night. Why is he getting a blood sugar level low? Because he's on too much insulin. Too much insulin is going to bring it too low. So he'd wake up in the middle of the night and have a lolly. Now the lolly, would that get it up? Oh yes. Boom! But he'd always get a headache. He said, after a couple of nights of that, I decided to try an apple. So he went and got an apple, and he'd eat an apple. And the fruit sugars released in the apple juice, that would get it up, but it takes a long time to eat an apple in the middle of the night. He said after a couple of days of that, and hearing the lecture and hearing about the glycogen stores, he would get up in the middle of the night if he had a blood sugar level low, and he would do 10 push-ups. Boom, 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 boom. And it would get the blood sugar level up. Where'd that come from? His glycogen stores. He told me he got up one morning and his blood glucose levels were 3. Now that's nearly passing out. Had a couple of big drinks of water. Do you know what water does? It helps to release your glycogen and your fat stores. And he went through a high intensity run up the hills, walking down the hills, running up the hills, called interval training. Came back, tested his blood sugar levels, 9. And he'd eaten nothing. He just had water. He's a very quiet young man. He said to me, why didn't anyone tell me about glycogen? Don't you think it's one of the diabetics' best kept secrets? It's already there. It's already in the muscle cell. You just do a bit of exercise and it'll be plaqued. And by the way, if that runs out, what have we got? Fat. By the 3rd week, he'd dropped his short and long-acting insulin by 90% in 3 weeks.
After seeing Dan's progress, we started to emphasise the importance of glycogen storage and how it can be a game changer for those managing diabetes. Glycogen is the stored form of glucose, primarily found in the liver and muscles. When you engage in physical activity, your body taps into these glycogen reserves to maintain blood sugar levels, especially when they start to drop. For diabetics, understanding this process is crucial. Instead of reaching for a quick sugar fix, which can cause spikes and crashes in blood sugar levels, utilizing glycogen stores through exercise can provide a more stable and sustainable approach to managing glucose. Simple activities like walking, push-ups, or even interval training can activate these glycogen stores, helping to raise blood sugar naturally and avoiding the need for extra insulin or sugary snacks.
Number 4, water. Our body loss, even on cold weather like this today, is about 2.5 litres. We need to replace the 2 litres. The other ½ litre can be replaced by fruits, vegetables, herb teas. The best way to take it is little by little by little. Start early. Have it by your bed. As soon as you wake up, have a glass of water. After you've got dressed and been to the bathroom, have another glass of water. After you've done your high-intensity exercise, come back and maybe have some hot water with a bit of lemon. What's that? That's 3/4 of a litre, more than a quarter of your daily intake, even before 8 o'clock. That's how to do it. Start early. Have it by your bed. If you wake in the night, have a glass. So approximately 2 litres over the day, and whole salt. That's your Celtic salt or your Himalayan salt. They both have 82 minerals in them. And as you'll see tomorrow night, I will illustrate on the board, the magnesium in those salts pulls the water inside the cell. In the book, The Calcium Lie, Dr. Robert Thompson, he says, a crystal of Celtic salt on your tongue before every glass of water will only replace the minerals you lost yesterday. One lady said, surely not every glass. Yes. Yes. And it gets the water inside the cell. One lady said, I don't drink a lot of water because I'm running to the little house all day. I said, try this and try sipping the water. Mouthful here, mouthful there, mouthful here. Little by little over the day. And before you start every glass, every 250 ml glass, have a little crystal of Celtic salt. She came back to me. She said, I'm not running to the bathroom all day. You see, 500 ml in, not long to go before 500 ml has to come out. Do it little by little by little. It's great news for people who are a little elderly. Often elderly people don't drink water because they think they may not make the toilet. Have the salt and just sip it all through the day. Do you know, when we had that heat in Australia not long ago, a lot of old people died. Why did they die? Dehydrated. You see, 1 cup of coffee requires 5 glasses of water to account for the dehydrating agents in 1 cup of coffee. So sorry, that don't work. Number 5 is exercise. And the best exercise is the high intensity interval training. The high intensity interval training, as the name implies, are intervals of high intensity and intervals of recovery. So the high intensity should be approximately, well, depending on what you can do, but between 20 and 30 seconds of high intensity. Well, that's not very long, is it? Try it. When I get to 20 seconds of running as hard and as fast as I can go, my body says, stop, please. But I push on. At 25 seconds, my body says, this is ridiculous. At 30 seconds, I feel like I'm dying.
After those intense 30 seconds, you need to recover for about 90 seconds to 2 minutes. This means you can walk, jog slowly, or simply rest. The key is to let your heart rate come down before you start another round of high-intensity effort. This cycle of intense exercise followed by recovery is highly effective in improving cardiovascular health, boosting metabolism, and burning fat. It also saves time because you don't have to spend hours in the gym to see results. Just 20-30 minutes of this training 3 times a week can make a significant difference in your fitness level. Another important thing to remember is to stay hydrated during your exercise sessions. Even though you may not feel like drinking water during a workout, it's crucial to take small sips regularly. Dehydration can lead to fatigue, muscle cramps, and decreased performance. Keep a bottle of water handy and, as mentioned earlier, add a pinch of Celtic or Himalayan salt to help with electrolyte balance. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this information has helped you understand the role lifestyle plays in managing and preventing diabetes. Remember, the choices you make every day can have a big impact on your health. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more tips and insights on living a healthier life. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.